you can present that package. Now there's many different ways that you can market the property. You want to determine whether or not you should advertise. People tend to get a little bit possessive of sometimes a few pennies, a few dollars. I say sometimes if you hold that nickel too close to your face, if you're too concerned about the few pennies it's going to take to put a package together, you'll never see the dollar in profit. So when you're putting a package together, make the package clear. The package needs to have a 35-millimeter picture of the house. It needs to have a description of the house, the square footage of the house, the age of the house, when it was built. It needs to have your name, the address of the house, what you're asking for the house. I believe in putting the price on that one sheet. On the back of it, you need to have a map. And if you're in an area where you can get a printout from your court records, you want to get a printout of the court records and put it there because it's got information on there about the house that is full disclosure. It also verifies age of house and that type of things. Now, should you advertise? It's kind of one of those instances where you have to determine what is going to be best for your situation. What I find is that the small publications in most areas of the country are very good for advertising. When you're looking around for a publication, what you want to do is you want to find out some specific things. You want to ask them what is their circulation, and then you want to ask them how much is their paid circulation. That's very important because it tells you how many people actually want that paper. You want to know where their distribution points are. You want to know when is the deadline, when is the deadline for photographs. Is there an extra charge for photographs? Ask them if they have regional distributions because sometimes they can go out of your area, they can do just a certain section of an area. You want to know if they have any special rates that they can offer you, any package deals, and you want to know what the length of the ad is. In other words, you want to know with a certain size ad, you want to know how much that is going to cost and what type of rate breaks you can get on possibly running for a week or running for 2 weeks, because the most important rule in real estate is consistency. Absolutely, in real estate advertising is consistency. The number one rule is consistency. I can't say that enough. The number one rule is consistency. Because once you start advertising, what you're going to find is that when people are ready to buy a house, listen to this, when people are ready to buy a house, they will buy a house within 3 to 4 weeks of making the emotional decision that they are ready to buy that house. It is absolutely astounding. Once they're emotionally ready, they're going to buy. So when you start to advertise and you have that property ready to market, you want to be consistent with your advertising. When you're trying to decide what you want to put in your ad, the best thing to do is to get some people around you that you can work with, friends, family, support group, people that are interested in real estate, interested in what you're doing, and start brainstorming. By getting the people around you and starting to brainstorm, it's going to help you come up with many better, different ideas. Brainstorming is simply a situation where you work from the idea of everything that comes out of somebody's mouth is okay. Now, it's very important. Somebody says something. Gary comes up and says, I have an idea to do this. You say, that's a good idea. Jim comes up and says, I have an idea to do this. That's a good idea. Elizabeth says, I have an idea to do that. That's a good idea. You write it down. Rather than saying, that's not going to work. Because if you say to someone, if Kevin comes up with an idea and I say, I don't think that'll work, is that going to encourage him to come up with different ideas? No, it's going to discourage him. So what you need to do is encourage the people that are around you in a brainstorming situation to come up with as many ideas as possible. And it goes back to just standard behaviorism, reinforcing what you're doing. Somebody says something, you say something, somebody says, good idea. You're going to say something else? Sure. You're going to try to come up with something else. It seems very simple. It's something that we should have learned in high school, but unfortunately we did not learn that. Brainstorming is one of the most important parts of working in real estate as a real estate investor, because you can get people around you that are interested in what you're doing. You can help each other with marketing ideas. You can help each other with advertising. And so that is really, really critical. How else can you advertise other than actually placing an ad? I alluded to it before. There's some instances where you can actually put up cards in grocery stores. You can put up, if there's some type of an association close at hand, you can mark it through there. Talk to your, talk to the person who runs your mail route. Find out if they know anyone that's moving or needs a home. There's all different ways that you can advertise that's not going to cost you anything at all. As a matter of fact, there are some organizations, real estate organizations in areas that will actually have little newsletters that will help you market. There's all kinds of exciting things that you can come up with in your particular area. I could make lists for you, but your area is going to be very different. And the best thing for you to do is sit down with people and say, what can we do that's not going to cost us any money? And that's really critical. Now, what's the first rule for you once you place an ad? The first rule for you, absolute first rule for you, is be there. Be there. You want to be there because people are going to want to see that property. When people want to see that property, they want to see the property now. Remember, I told you how fast people make a buying decision when they're ready to buy? Now, sure, there's going to be some tire kickers. But when they want to see your house, they want to see it. So be available to show them the house. Now, a lot of people put a sign that'll say, by appointment only. As far as I'm concerned, when you're ready to put into the ground a sign, you should be ready, willing, and able to show that home at a moment's notice. And that means that the home needs to be prepared to market. It needs to be ready at all times. Now, I'm talking about from the standpoint, again, of a homeowner-occupant. You know, it works just the same in relationship to working with investment property. Once you put the sign in the ground and once you start advertising, you want to be sure that the property is ready to market. Now, what do you do if you simply can't get to the site if somebody wants to see the property? Carleton Sheets talks about this, and I think it's a wonderful idea, and I've used it for years. I simply have people leave a deposit with me and give them a key if it's an investment property and the house is vacant. Let them go see the property themselves and take their time. They'll be back. They'll be back if they leave a tidy deposit. They'll be back to get their money to bring the key back, and they'll be safe. I've never had a problem with it. I've always been safe and secure with that. Always be sure when you prepare this home profile, I want you to have it done professionally. If you're not a typist, if you don't have a computer to access, take it to one of the companies that does that for you. But I want it to look very, very professional. And it will absolutely save you and make you just thousands of dollars. Now, how about signage? That's something that everybody wants to talk about because a lot of people will say, what kind of sign do I need? I did a presentation years ago in the Midwest, and a woman came up to me after this presentation on home prescription, and she said, would you please come to my house and talk to my husband? And I said, well, that kind of sort of depends. What do you want me to talk to him about? And she said, well, tell him what you told us about signs, that he needs a professional sign. She said, our home is a beautiful custom-made home, and I drove by the home, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was wood and very tidy, and you can see how tidy that yard is. I mean, it was. You even saw where the lawnmower. What's that thing? That shows you how much I know it. You even saw where the lawnmower grooves were. And then I came across the sign, and now I knew why she wanted me to talk to him. Because the sign misrepresented the house. Misrepresented the house. Have you heard the fact that you never have the chance to remake a first impression? That's right. You never have a chance to remake a first impression, and this was an actual situation. And he was unwilling because he thought he would save a couple of dollars. A custom-built home, and it was a situation that was very unappealing. This is another instance of a for sale by owner sign. Somebody's trying to save some money, a few dollars. It's very inexpensive to have a professional sign made. Here's an example of a really nice sign. I've shown you two shots of this, one from the road, because I want you to see that one of the only problems with the sign is that they didn't have it made large enough because I'm actually at the road when I take a picture of it. See the sign here? It's too small to be seen from the road, but they've got the general idea. One of the other things, can you see it? You can. One of the other things about this property, as a matter of fact, this was in an area in Tennessee. One of the things that I talk about and have for years is that you have to pay attention to the roof. It mildews every place in the country. You need to take care of cleaning that roof. Don't have it pressure washed, because that's really hard on shingles, assuming you're dealing with shingles, because that actually knocks off too many of the shingles, but have somebody wash it with pool chlorine. Be careful, because the pool chlorine is very, very hot. But have them wash it with pool chlorine. Use a garden sprayer. You can have it done by a handyman. And just use chlorine, and in a day or two it'll come right up, and then just wash it off with plain water. It won't hurt your shrubbery as long as you have some water around, but that is one of the things that will help sell a house quicker than anything else. It's one of my pet peeves. People overlook it. They don't understand why they don't like a house, but a lot of the reasons has to do with that. Now here's a closer view of that sign. The sign is correct in relationship to what you need to do with the sign. The sign has red, and it's got a white background. It has some red, it has some black. That's all you need. White background, red and black. They did some fancy stuff here, but they've done one thing wrong with the sign. Can you tell me what it is? They have house for sale. Are they selling a house? They're selling a home, and that's really critical. Houses are made of sticks and stones. Only love can make a home. Now that may sound corny, folks, but that's exactly what people think of. Home has a tone about it that is much more appealing to people. House, on the other hand, is very sharp, and it's very unappealing. Here's a very good for sale by owner sign, a very good for sale by owner sign. Has for sale by owner, tells you what it is. Has a phone number. In this instance, it had some commercial zoning, so they told the commercial zoning. As far as I'm concerned, white background, black, red, that's all you need. Keep it simple. Keep the letters as big as possible. Let the people know it's for sale by owner. This particular one, being a commercial piece of property, remember I told you that the concepts that we talk about can be used for commercial as well as residential. In this instance, a commercial piece of property, it could have been better if they had actually had two signs. Now, in commercial frontage, they oftentimes look at commercial frontage based on front feet, all right? And the front feet is sometimes hard to define. If you're going to put two signs and you've got a busy road, you put one at an angle on one lane of traffic and the other at an angle on the other lane of traffic at the corners of the property. So people say how large it is, you can say the signs are from corner to corner. And that'll help you in relationship to dealing with vacant land or commercial land or that type of property. But signage is very, very critical. It's just like when you have something for rent. I mean, this is a big one, isn't it? This is about twice the size of the ones that most people put up. For rent sign, cost a couple of bucks. As far as I'm concerned, you're wasting your time. Have one of the signs made that's the size of a real estate sign. Know what I'm saying? The ones that you see that a real estate company puts in the ground, this wide by this wide. White with black and red letters. Have your phone number in black. You always want your phone number in black in the boldest possible letters that you can get. Someone mentioned it's important to have an area code. It depends a lot on where you are. If you're in an area that happens to be right on the border with an area code, then you might want to put your area code. If you're going to have two phone numbers, you want to be sure that anytime they call one of those phone numbers, if they don't get a person, they're going to get some type of a voicemail, some type of an answering machine, because they need to know that they're having a response. People will only try back twice. They'll only call you twice. They'll call you once, and they may call you a second time. It's critical that once you get going, that you be there to show the property. You're going to hear me say that time and time and time again. Well, what if you have other business to do? If you have other business to do, then you need to make alternative arrangements. What type of alternative arrangements? If you have a real estate broker that you can work with, that's fine. But when I first started and decided to work with people on teaching them how to sell their own real estate, I actually called the program How to Sell Your Own Real Estate Without Paying a Real Estate Commission, because I believed that it was critical for people who were investing in real estate to be able to sell their own real estate by themselves so that they would have more money to invest in the real estate market. If I help an investor buy a piece of property, they're going to have their money tied up in that property. If I can then teach them how to sell that piece of property on their own, they can then take that money and buy another piece of property, and maybe I can help them with that sale. From the standpoint of being a real estate broker, it didn't threaten me at all. I was very comfortable with it. From the standpoint of an investor or a homeowner to be able to sell their own real estate, I think it's critical today. So you can work with a real estate broker. You can also work with other people. If you have neighbors in your area that you might be able to work with, try that. But remember, when you are living in a home and you want to show that home, you need to be sure that the house is secure, that you have anything that's small, that's delicate, that might be something someone would enjoy having better than you. You want to be sure that that's out and taken and secured. Now, how do you give directions to your house? Suppose you've got an ad and the ad is very appealing and you start getting calls. Do you always tell people how to get to your house by the shortest way? Good for you. Good for you. That's exactly right. No, you don't tell them how to get to your house by the shortest way. Remember, first impressions are how people buy houses. Well, in fact, if you have a teenage daughter in your house, I guarantee you that she has given directions to your house the most appealing way for the boys who come to visit her. I guarantee it. She already knows what she's supposed to do. So what you need to do is to take and make a trip from every way that you can get to your house and figure out which is more appealing. Now, does that mean that you're trying to hide something from somebody? No, because they're going to drive the neighborhood. But you want their first impression of your home to be more appealing. Now, what happens when the phone starts ringing? Remember I said you need to be there? Well, if you're not there, what do you need to do in relationship to who is there? Well, I've oftentimes said what you need to do is maybe kennel the pets and rent out the kids during the time that you're trying to sell your home, but unfortunately that's not oftentimes a feasible solution. You need to make selling your home, if you're living in your home, you need to make it a family affair. And you need to be sure that the kids understand that when that phone rings and it has to do with the sale of real estate, has to do with someone asking about the house, you need to be sure that they take the proper information. If they're not old enough to do that, you need to set the phone up on an answering machine, some type of email, some type of email, that'll work. Voicemail is what I'm trying to say. Some type of voicemail so that it's covered. But the last thing you want is you want to have a small child pick up the phone and keep saying, "Who is it? Who is it?" You will not have a buyer call back again. They simply won't do it. So you need to really work with the kids. Today, it's pretty easy in a household to take care of having possibly a second line for your children. And I really do suggest that if you're dealing in real estate, or have a second line for your real estate. If you are an investor and you're working in real estate, you need to have at least 2 lines into your house, so that line that you give out to people for your real estate does always go into something that's going to answer it, rather than having a busy signal. Because if you have children in the house, once people get home, once they get home from school, the phones are going to be busy. I've oftentimes said limit the phone calls to 5 minutes, but frankly it causes less strife in families to get oftentimes a second line because it's fairly inexpensive. So what you need to do is to limit the calls or get a second line. Always be sure to get the name and number of the people that are calling you and get the first name and the last name. That's very important. Somebody calls me, they start asking me about a property. I say, I'm Donna Blevins. May I know your name, please? And they'll say, Bill. And I say, Bill who? Bill Smith. And I say, is that S-M-I-T-H? He said, no, that has an E on it. Okay? You want to be sure to spell it back to them. That's very important. And I say, you know my phone number, may I have a contact number for you? And they usually give it to you. If they don't want to give it to you, they're probably not an interested person anyway. But get their phone number and echo back the number to them. What is your number? 234-234-7685-7685. It's very easy to write something down incorrectly. That echoing back is something that you need to make a part of talking on the phone. It's very important, very easy to do. When you're ready to show the property and the phone's ringing, you need to keep the sound environment of the house so that it's appealing. Keep the noise down. If you've got that separate line like I'm talking about, it's better. Keep it away from the television. That's really important. There's nothing more distracting than when I'm calling on a piece of property than to have the television blaring in the background. It's very hard to talk to people and having people yelling at their kids when you're trying to talk with them. So when somebody's calling into you, you want to be sure that you can have yourself in a private location where you can talk with them. It's a very small investment, and many people feel like that a second line will certainly be the solution. And I've talked about the price of mess and clutter and unmade beds, and the biggest price is that your house will probably stay on the market for a very long period of time. As a matter of fact, what I do when I've got a property to sell is I actually have someone come in, because I work so long and so long hours, I actually have someone come in, and the cost of selling that real estate is having someone clean my house at least once a week. And I don't have it consistently on a weekly basis if I'm not selling the house, but when I'm selling the house, I have that done. Because I can hear the women going, I don't feel like cleaning the house every day because I'm too tired, I have too many things to do. The majority of people, women today are working just like men are. They don't have the time to do that, and the price of selling the house can simply be someone to come in and clean the house. And it's a small thing to have, and besides, you're probably going to find that you like it a whole lot. How do you dress when you're ready to sell a piece of real estate, or when you are the buyer? Do you dress differently? Remember, every part of your image is something that something's going to say something about yourself. What you need to do is when you dress to sell a piece of real estate, you need to dress not necessarily, let's say you're in a home, not necessarily professionally as you would be in a business environment, but probably a step above how you would dress if you were going to stay at home. Something that you would use possibly to go out on a date, maybe. Let's just say that. Nothing fancy. You want to keep the jewelry off as much as possible. It's very, very important. I can't stress that enough. If you notice, I've gotten so much in the habit of being without jewelry that I probably wear very little of it now. And one of the reasons is that I am in homes so much with other people. I don't want to run the risk of a safety issue of being in a situation where someone might want that piece of jewelry more than me. And I think that's important. I see one woman looking down at her ring going, I don't want to take it off. But it's really important. And also when you're selling, if you have something on that's very, very valuable, that may say something about the house, that people may think, well, maybe it's something I can't afford, you know? So the fewer things that you have on your body that give signals, the better off you are. How about when you're buying? When you're buying, it's kind of sort of like, it's not exactly like when you're selling, but I don't want you to look like you've got $1 million and at the same time you don't want to look like a pauper. A lot of it depends on the area that you're in. If you're dealing in a Midwest agricultural land, it wouldn't make any sense for a woman to go out to look at a farm in a skirted suit and heels. That'd be really silly. You need to be appropriate for your area, but generally speaking, people need to dress a little better than they think they do. Because again, you're saying something about yourself. When you're buying, you want people to have confidence in you, but you don't want them to think that you've got a lot of extra money, that they can get that extra money out of you. So that says some things too. You know, when you drive up to a car dealership, have you ever noticed how people treat you depending on the car you drive up in a car dealership? You notice that? That is really just a manifestation of what I'm talking about. And think about it. Think about what would be appropriate and go from there. A good idea is to have actual copies of utility bills and tax bills available for people to see, because they say, how much does the electric run? It's a whole lot easier because people believe it and believe it. Here are the bills for the last 12 months. Is that a good idea? Absolutely. Water bills, electric bills, that's something that's very good. Again, the buyers are coming. I want you to simplify. Linen closets are something that is an albatross. The people absolutely ignore those. They are very unappealing. But I want to tell you something. They have made people a lot of money. I actually teach people how to arrange a